Yes, leader.
Chairman Fatimatu Abubakari. Sanda Dadinke. Congratulations. So you can write Kusal and you can write Hausa. Is that true? Go to page 1 of your CV. Do you speak it or you can write it?
Mr. Chairman, please, I speak Kusal and Hausa as well as English and Chi.
Do you write Hausa and Kusal?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so let Chairman do the correction for you. Now, when you say Certificate for Women in Politics Training, 2012, what month was that? Do you remember?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Please, from January to November 2012.
And then, no, you say, when you just say 2012, that's my difficulty, because you should have like a cut-off date. A cut-off date for our purposes sometime. For instance, you just say people, Mafu and Associates, Accra, 2021 to date. January, were you there? February, were you there? If we check the record, go to page 2 of your CV. Tell Chairman you come and clean it up.
Well noted, Mr. Chairman. I'll effect the necessary corrections.
And then, so you are very comfortable with just years. 2021. Have you worked at the office of the presidency before?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
As what?
Mr. Chairman, please, I was the immediate past Deputy Communications Director at the office of the President from January 2017 to January 2021.
Thank you. Were you combining the office of the president work with your law practice, as I see in, you just started 2021. That's why I needed the date. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman.
please, for my LLB program, I was doing the weekend option, as stated in the
Now, our women in the Zangos, and you are one, very enterprising, very high entrepreneurial skills. What they lack is just basic money of 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 to start a trade. And you'll be deputy minister, not necessarily for that. But what's your thought? What do we do to get our women out of poverty? Using Kumasi Moshizongo as a case study, just share your thoughts and views. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Using myself as an example, I think the best or only possible breakthrough for women in my community, Boshizongo and other Zongo communities across the country, is education. I believe it's the only bridge between poverty and wealth and enlightenment. So I'm a strong advocate of getting a lot of our young women in these communities to go to school, so that even if they complete and they are not employed by the formal sector or the private formal sector, they will be able to use some of the skills they've acquired in school and knowledge to...
Chairman, I appreciate the nominee's answer, but the truth, the fact is, there are two categories of women in Kumasi Moshizango, the educated and uneducated. Your answer gives me hope into the future to encourage girl-child education and female education. The category that have lost the opportunity to be in school and to go to school must leave. What do you have for that category of women? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Please, for the category who have missed out on the opportunity to go to school or are unable to access those opportunities, I believe there are a lot of government interventions and also interventions from non-government players to get them to access some funds so that they can start some businesses. Such interventions include the Maslow program, where loan facilities are given to small businesses and individuals to start something, as well as the NBSSI, now Ghana Enterprises Agency. There was also another program under the immediate past Ministry for Business Development, where they had the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan. And that program alone, 2 million Ghana cedis was disbursed to women entrepreneurs who are disabled or physically challenged, for the want of better words, for them to be able to invest in some businesses.
Honorable Deputy Minister Designate, I like it when you mention MASLOC and BSSI service. From your experience, will the political party operatives allow those who are not part of their party but deserve it, will they allow others to take it? That's a challenge we are all facing. If MPP is in power, MPP people insist that we must get it. If NDC is in power, NDC people insist we must get it. Will you, your operatives at Moshizongo, allow the NDC people in Moshizongo to access the fund if it were to be disbursed only at Moshizongo?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. But I believe it's an issue that we are all interested in advocating for equitable distribution of state resources. And for that matter, we continuously ask those in charge of set programs to rather use formal channels so that these vulnerable individuals and communities can access the fund.
I'm taking you on your word that you represent Moshizongo for this fund. Every woman there, when there's an opportunity, you ensure that every woman who deserves it, not only your party person, even if we cannot serve every woman who deserves it, at least we'll be indiscriminate in the way we disperse them. Can I get that assurance from you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, so I support Chairman that we should end the discrimination in the way we assess opportunities for our citizens. But Chairman, since the nominee is going to the Ministry of Information, and this will be my last in the warm-up series, Article 162, you'll be assisting the Honorable Agyapong Nkrumah, and I'm just reading Article 162 for your purposes. It reads, if you have the Constitution, read along with me, or let the Secretary, Chairman, let them help. Editors and publishers of newspapers and other institutions of the mass media shall not be subject to control or interference by government. By government. You will be a government state official. Nor shall they be penalized or harassed for their editorial opinions and views or the content of their publications. Give me a promise. Will you leave the words in these words of the Constitution? Article 162(4).
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. You have my word.
If I see harassment traceable to you, I will take it as a breach of your honor of journalists and publishers. Contextualize it, Minister for Communication. I read 162(4). Now, GBC, you and your minister, I know you'll be assistant, so I won't burden you so much. And Chairman, I'll end it just here. The Minister for Communication is here. The two of them are not doing the country a lot of good. Minister for Information and Communication, there's no broadcaster bill in Ghana. We still can't distinguish between a state broadcaster and public broadcaster. We don't know the difference. Yes, actually there was a joint cabinet memo far back 2012 between you and Minister for Information. Honorable Kojo, share with the minister before she interferes rudely. You know her. Child, this is not meant for her. I'm dealing with the Agyapong. So, Chairman, there's no broadcaster bill. We need it. You need a legal framework that distinguishes between one, a public broadcaster, private broadcaster, community broadcaster. That's why you have this local FM station, community, and others. It has to be defined by legislation. You see, for instance, in the morning, GBC is state broadcaster. In the evening, they say they are public broadcaster. Yet their legislation doesn't support that. will you support your minister to transform the broadcaster regime through legislation? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe it's necessary that we have a broadcasting bill, which hopefully with the assistance of this honorable house will be passed as a law. It is important because we know, for instance, when it comes to the regulatory work of NCA and MNC, there are some kind of gray areas that you would wish we would have a law that will consolidate those gray areas and also ensure that if there are some conflicting areas within those two regulatory authorities, they are all sorted out. So although there are some existing legal framework when it comes to broadcasting, the broadcasting bill will be the one-stop shop to help us work on regulation and broadcasting in the country.
Chairman, I wish the nominee well. Thank you.
I'm not seeing the ladies show their hands for the first time. They have started their discrimination here. Yes. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And congratulations to you, Fatimatu.
Thank you.
Fatimatu, you and I share a lot of commonalities. Yeah, I grew up in Moshizongo, Tamale, not Kumasi. And I'm a Zongo woman. I sit here representing, I think, the most famous Zongo community in this country, Salaga South constituency. That's the #1 Zongo in this country. And I'm a woman. My first question will therefore emanate from your responses to the venerable ranking member about what you will do to move our women in the Zongo communities from poverty to prosperity and well-being. I tie that in too with the observations from the Honorable Chair about disbursements of Maslock funds and why we should not be discriminating whether the women are NDC or MPP. They are women. My question is, I'm the first on record to be the female to contest elections in Salaga South constituency and to win. After I won the elections, MPP activists in my constituency threatened fire and brimstone. We will show her. We will show her where power lies. And indeed, they've started. We will make sure that she doesn't perform. Now, I rode on the back of the women of Salaga South constituency. I rode on the back of education to participate effectively in the politics and to win. As a member of the NPP, and not just a member, a ranking member of the NPP, what message do you have for your NPP folks in Salaga South constituency? Thank you.
Thank you very
Honorable
much.
Member, your whatever you say is for everybody, because you don't know the facts as it is. So your statement must be for everybody if you wish to respond to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm a strong supporter of the cause of women, not just because I'm a woman, but I believe it's the right thing to do. So I will just advocate that we should all come on board to support women so that there will be equitable representation in terms of leadership, in terms of corporate governance, and so on and so forth. So I'm your first supporter, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Fatima. My second question, coming from the office of the President, where you were Deputy Director of Communications, how do you think that role will help you in this new position that you are going to assume? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My role as Deputy Communications Director offered me the opportunity to engage in policy communication as well as government communication at various levels. It is necessary that going forward, as people who are supposed to engage the public, be a source of government information, that this background is established. Because to some extent, it's giving me the exposure and how to deal with media and how to take feedback and how to engage in civic conversations when it comes to government positions and policy communication. Thank you.
My final question. Your minister has started some initiatives at the ministry, the Ministerial Briefing Initiative. The ministry is also very active on social media. Do you have any specific ideas on how to sharpen this initiative to the benefit of Ghanaians? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am really excited that quite recently the Honorable Minister for Information, Honorable Agyapong, launched the Amplified program. I believe it's a leveler and is going to give a lot of young people in this country the opportunity to use the Ministry of Information's platform to sell their business ideas and their businesses, and also to advocate for their causes. So I support the minister fully in that area. And also the minister is also embarking on a transformational agenda at ISD and the various entities under the ministry. And given the opportunity, I will give him my energy and my commitments and always be there to support the minister deliver in those areas.
Yes, Honorable Obama.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Fati, congratulations. Let's go back to the Media Commission and look at your legislation. I think Act 449 sets up the Media Commission, and Section 4 deals with the independence of the Commission. But in appointing the chairman and other members of the governing bodies of public corporations managing the state-owned media, the president does that in consultation with the Media Commission. How independent is the Media Commission, especially when the executive has a certain role in those appointments?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In recognizing the function of the National Media Commission as set out under Article 167 and also in the NMC Act 1993, I believe whatever rules spelled out for the president or the executive is only complementary to what the National Media Commission is tasked to do under the Constitution and existing enactments. Because as the Honorable Minister said when he came for vetting, that even the ministry in dealing with the state-owned media ensures that it is done at the instance of the NMC or with their collaboration and approval. So to some extent, the NMC takes the sole responsibility to ensure that the media is independent and enjoying the freedom set out under the 1992 Constitution.
That's a brilliant answer. Thank you. And let's look at the Office of the President, where you used to work at the Communications Directorate. We have a Director of Communications at the Presidency. And we have your soon-to-be boss, Honorable Nkrumah, as the Minister of Information. What is the relationship between those two bodies in the area of government communications, and how do you think it must coexist to ensure that we disseminate government information effectively, devoid of all the fake news around? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The relationship has been that of collaboration, and over the years, we've had the benefit of working with the Honorable Minister for Information in his capacity as Deputy Minister and as Minister. So when it matters and we need to collaborate to work for the purpose of dissemination of government information, we do so.
Right to information, your minister was at the forefront. Passage of the RTI bill, he fought so hard. And you have GBC and ISD to disseminate government. And they are poorly equipped. Last time I checked, they have next to nothing. And what do you think must be done to equip those institutions? GBC has a lot of assets scattered around the country, and staff morale and what have you. Do you think Mr. Nkrumah need to be supported by government to bring the image of GBC and ISD back to the levels that we think they deserve to? Thank you, Chairman. My last question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In relation to ISD, as the Minister mentioned when he was here, the ISD transformational agenda was sent to Cabinet and received Cabinet approval. And in due course, I believe the ISD transformational agenda will bring a lot of infrastructure and logistical changes in the sector to help them with the gathering and processing and dissemination of authentic information to the benefit of Ghanaians. When it comes to GBC also requires a lot of resources. And I am a strong advocate of trying to help them to reorganize and also to get the necessary funding to deliver to expectation. The reason being that GBC, although it's a state broadcaster, they've played a very crucial role when it comes to public service broadcasting. For instance, when it comes to public education in relation to COVID. And they share reason that in terms of their reach and coverage and the number of languages that they deal with, it helps to reach out to minorities in the country who are cut off the media space due to geographical or language barriers. So I support any effort to get GBC the necessary resources. And as and when the need arises, I'll be at the beck and call of the minister to ensure that happens.
Thank you. Congratulations, my dear.
Yes. Oh, sorry. The Honourable Minister has a sought permission, so I'll grant her and then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Congratulations, Fati. Pardon? Thank you, Co-Chair and Acting Ranking. You're duly acknowledged as well. Please enjoy it while it lasts. We're all very impressed with the strides that you've made in the last few years since we've known you. And I have no doubt that you'll be, once approved, a very suitable addition to assist your minister in the performance of his duties. And I'm looking forward to working closely with you on that. But this is a follow-up to the earlier response you gave about opportunities to be given to women, particularly women in the Zongos, in terms of improving their financial standing. Now, what will you do to use digital marketing to put their traditional wares on the world stage? Currently, shea butter is now globally acknowledged as an excellent material for skincare. So is our black soap, what we call alata semina. And there's a lot more that our traditional food, clothing, skincare products, even makeup, Koli is now being used globally. And they all got it from us back here. So what will we do to assist our women to monetize the ordinary things that we use, knowing that once it is properly marketed, it can have global appeal and enable them to also earn a decent living doing what they do so well, using the digital tools at our disposal?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe something very interesting has happened to my generation, which is new media or social media. It's become very imperative that even those who do not own shops or capital, so far as they go into production or into any service, with just a mobile phone, you will be able to access a larger market than what you have in your community, your region, or even within your country. But a lot of people are not even aware of the importance of accessing some of these platforms. So my contribution will be to educate people and give them the kind of enlightenment for them to recognize the market that exists beyond their comfort zone, and also help them through programs that are existing to make sure they are able to do the necessary packaging and branding so that they will meet the world standards, especially in this time of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, to access markets beyond our shores. Thank you.
Thank you, and we stand ready to assist. So let's work together to package products and projects for our women, disadvantaged women in peri-urban communities. Now, you were born in 1986. I'm not sure if you remembered much about the revolutionary years, but there's currently a lot of talk about culture of silence. Do you know about it? And is it all right to criticize the work of journalists? And does that mean they are being gagged or unduly harassed? Are journalists, media personnel, always right?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe that the context within which the phrase culture of silence was used is no longer prevalent in our country. The reason being that before the 1992 Constitution came into force, we had government monopoly when it comes to media. One radio station, one TV station, and even those who were licensed to bring out newspapers were only allowed to do sports and lotto. But from the 1992 Constitution and the liberties that have been given to the media under Article 21 and other legislations, the kind of successes and rise we have gained as a country when it comes to pluralism in the media space is overwhelming. It's not baby steps. Because the last time I checked from the NCA website some time ago, we had, as at the end of second quarter of 2020, some 475 radio stations and 146 TV stations. Those within the past 3 decades.
You can include the information centers.
And especially, Mr. Chairman, with emerging trends, we have the new media and so on and so forth. It has, and in addition to the repeal of the criminal libel law, which was spearheaded by our president, who was then Attorney General, you can see that the media, although some people would like to create the impression that there is a creeping culture of silence, in fact, it's not what I see as existing today. And it is one of the reasons why, because of the free media and tolerance and the democracy we have, that Jack Dorsey of Twitter announced that they are choosing Ghana as the Africa headquarters of Twitter. So I believe we've come a long way. We've not arrived, but there is no culture of silence.
Thank you, Honorable Nilante.
You've set the ground, so I'll dance to your music. Agyapong, let me say that even though you're my Zongo sister, I'm not going to be charitable because Esla has set the grounds. So we'll traverse that path a little. Kinjiko, To, Zamufara, from the same point. Over the years, and it's obvious that government is paying a group of people to do social media work. And some of these people have been seen to be social media hawks who descend, attack ferociously on people who are seen to be critics of government. Do you think that fits into the perception that there is culture of silence?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not aware of such payments or such organized groups.
You are not aware that there are people at this thing called communication officer who are paid under our budget?
No, Mr. Chairman.
You don't know?
No, please.
Okay. I'm happy Kojo is sitting right by you as my very good friend and brother. He is not licensed to speak here. Hey, put your hand down. Put your hand down. Okay. I will advise you, when you go and you become aware of it, whatever you do to minimize the veracity and the vicious sense of these attacks, because it's happened to even prominent Ghanaians like, say, Sam Jonah. And people have talked about it. He mentioned it in his piece. So you look at them. It's good to have people to work in the media for government, but then they are supposed to reflect government to the people. So take that note of that. Now let me go to another sensitive area, and it's about you. It's about you, and I don't want you to take it personal. We are all young politicians coming up. You know. Some people have a feeling that your social appearance, which to me is quite different from what I'm seeing you sitting here for. You are saucy, you are brashy. So, as a PR person for government, your personal attitude does not really conform to what people want to see as somebody who stands between government and the people. Are you brashy?
No, Mr. Chairman. I've never heard such comments about me before.
The last one for me now, because I'm sitting in Mutaka's position, so I'll come back. Yes, Chairman will give me that last thing. Agyapong, or Kinche Keba Agyapong. Bakakabo Jimba.
Mr. Chairman, Bante Makaba.
Both required to translate into English.
Chairman.
Please, so what did you ask her?
Chairman.
For the record.
I asked her, I called her Agyapong. Then I said, I've now recognized you have not reached there yet. And she said, yes, she's not yet an Agyapong. Chairman, see me free tuition
is that what
in the
you
language.
said?
Chairman, you have so many residents, constituents who are Muslims and Hausas. So learn the language.
Thank you for your advice. Yeah.
Thank you. Aja, you serve on the Trade Fair Board. This hula baloo is from the La Traditional Council, the La Youth for Development, and the rest about the divestiture, the way the Trade Fair Authority was divested, and also the way and manner the board or the management destroyed, demolished people's properties, your own tenants destroyed their properties in order to effect the divestiture, has brought a lot of problems. In your own personal view, do you think the way the board proceeded or the management did that work was good for public image?
Mr. Chairman, please, it can be examined, but what I know for a fact is that the tenants and other stakeholders were engaged in course of the 4 years that I served on the board at all times, and some of them voluntarily left the place. But if there are any additional accusations that I'm not aware of, maybe I would have to check that and hopefully get back to you.
Well, let me take the opportunity to say I want to congratulate the nominee. I'm proud to having a Zongo sister coming up, but I want her to be a role model for some of our Zongo girls. The best. I wish you the best.
One question I'll give you. All right.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is a very, very important question to me. In fact, there were two, but I'll take the one. In an answer to an earlier question that you answered, you said because now we have 475 radio stations, about 146 TV stations, you are of the view that culture of silence does not exist. But contrary to this view, many Ghanaians believe that culture of silence exists now. And indeed, when we talk about culture of silence, my understanding is that it is a situation where right-thinking members of the society or ordinary members of the society are afraid to criticize decisions of government or policies of government with the fear that they will be intimidated if they come out to speak. Now, when you look at the trends, you can talk about the seeming threats or challenges that a journalist like Anas Arimia Anas had under your watch. You can talk about
these are all very argumentative.
No,
right?
they are not.
Just
Mr.
ask
Chairman,
your
they are
question.
not.
They are.
So
because I don't agree with you that
Chairman,
challenging him is a
Mr.
culture of
Chairman,
silence.
I want to quote
Just
from
ask your
an
question.
article. Let me quote from an article. Please, let me quote from an article published in various newspapers, titled, it's a statement on Kalakuda, and this article has been published variously on the various news portals. You can Google that article. There are several views that have been shared on that. Now,
is that not evidence that there's freedom of speech? Because there are so many articles left and right, without any objection. That's
Mr. Chairman,
evidence that there's so much freedom of
Mr. Chairman,
speech.
the point
but
is that...
ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Now, the point is that people like Manasseh Azuri have had a cause to complain that they've been intimidated because they've been critical of government. We can name Captain Smart, who recently have had a cause to raise concerns that because he's critical of government, he's been harassed. You can talk about Kofi-Addo Mawamani sometime last year when he had some information on those COVID publications, who had a cause to be invited by the police. Now my question is because you said in your view there is no culture of silence. That's why I'm putting these facts to you. Because these matters are matters of fact. And it's available in the media domain and everybody knows about them. My point is that the current system where people who are critical of government become agents of attack create the system or the culture of silence that people are complaining about. So your view that there is no culture of silence merely because of the plurality of the media is wrong. And that is what I want to put to you. What do you have to say about that? Yeah, she should respond to that. She's a deputy minister for information.
Mr. Chairman, the freedom of expression, which is guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution, is afforded to all of us, not one journalist, not one politician, or any single individual. So when opinions are expressed, irrespective of who is expressing those opinions, we should recognize that we are going to accept the praises, but also be tolerant of dissent or divergent views. And just the mere criticism or the mere opinion which is contrary to what a journalist has expressed does not amount to culture of silence.
But the issue has not been criticism of the journalist. The issue has rather been the alleged threats And no, of course, I mean, these are things that are in the public domain. There are several journalists that have raised concerns, including the recent one by, that was done to Caleb Kuda, and how the state apparatus went to CTF. And the point is that that way, or you see, if government reacts to criticisms in that manner, it creates fear within the citizens so that it becomes difficult for them to hold government accountable. And that's what I want you to talk about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When we have hundreds, if not thousands, of journalists in the country. And usually when there is any complaints of an alleged threat or attack or threat of attack, it is necessary that we are able to get a system in place to validate those allegations. And trust me, if the validations are to the effect that those incidents are really true, then the government has shown, not just by words, but by action, that we are allies when it comes to the safety of journalists. It's for that reason that the Ministry of Information initiated, and when we got the cabinet approval, the Office of the Coordinated Mechanism on the Safety of Journalists was set up. And as I speak to you, it has become the one-stop shop for journalists who have such alleged threats to go before this Office of Coordinated Mechanism on the Safety of Journalists to lodge complaints. And the NMC, through that office, will use the available institutions to make sure those are validated, and when necessary, prosecutions and further actions are taken. Thank you.
As a quick follow-up, are you aware that, as a quick follow-up,
I allowed you one, you've done
no,
two,
it's just a follow-up,
three,
Chairman.
that's not fair.
Oh, just a follow-up, Chairman.
That's not fair.
Chairman, just a follow-up, Chairman, just a follow-up. Please, are you aware that
You have just walked
Ghana
in,
has
you haven't
fallen?
heard what we've said. Yes, Honorable Obiama.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Congrats, Fati. You've done very well for yourself, and we believe moving forward you do so well. Now, I have one major issue, and even though your minister is here, I know you also would express your view on this matter. I go to a lot of sites, almost all the major media houses. I read stories from these media houses. But when it comes to comments, excuse me, when it comes to comments on some of these stories, it appears we don't have any policy on how these sites should be run. For instance, if you go to other sites outside our jurisdiction, even football sites, let me take Liverpool site. When you go to Liverpool and they do a story, there's a rider, content policy. If your comments are offensive and not related to this subject, we will take it off. It appears in Ghana here, the moment a story is put out, it's free for all. Not only commenting, but abusing people who are not even linked to the story. And then making certain comments which are very offensive. And some of these comments stay on these sites for days, months, ages. And indeed, no, I'm building a foundation. And indeed, if there is any culture, the situation is that it's become a culture of intimidation. There's a story about Obiamwa answering a question. The comments have nothing to do with what Obiamwa said, but to abuse Obiamwa and his family and everybody. Now, what do you think we should do to be able to address this very dangerous trend and situation in our media space?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe we all recognize as a country that when it comes to malicious publications of any nature, misinformation, whether it is done by mistake or it is done negligently, can have the kinds of effects that are sometimes irreversible. For instance, when someone brings out an information about COVID vaccines. And there are some vulnerable individuals who refuse to take the vaccines or are hesitant because of some of these comments or misinformation. It will go a long way to cost us so much. But I believe it is a fight that the media in general, especially the traditional media, to take it up upon themselves, and for all of us to join hands with them to educate the public about. But these are some of the emerging issues that you also find in the proposed broadcasting bill. And I hope with the stakeholder engagement and subsequent presentation, the Honorable House will be kind enough to assist us have it passed. Thank you.
Yes, you can have it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, congratulations to you. Honorable nominee, I perhaps also would not have asked a question until I heard about what tend to be a discussion of how free or not journalists are in this country, vis-a-vis the world rankings. That is not disputable, the fact that we have slipped from #1 position to about 3 in Africa. I have also often heard of government communicators. You, until now, even as you worked as the presidency, was often in the news referred to as one of the government spokespersons. I don't know the relationship between those we are told are government spokespersons or social media handlers at the presidency and those at the Ministry of Information. But you do know and you agree with me that many people have made references to them. A+ have made references to them. Samirial and us have made references to them, and all of that. So my question is, based on a budgetary allocation to what is termed government communication, which appeared in 2020, where 6 million Ghana cedis was allocated, and then again in the 2021 budget, page 241, you have 4 million Ghana cedis allocated to government communication. Is it fair to assume that perhaps this is used to fund these communicators?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The only time I heard of 6 million was when I heard about the Ministry of Communications role in communicating government policies and projects. So it's not as if it's some individuals from somewhere who have been engaged to go and attack people or anything of that sort. But as part of the work of the Ministry of Information, through the briefings, through the nation building updates, and a lot of the platforms that they create as a layer of accountability, and also trying to give as much information as the people of Ghana, it's become necessary for said budgets, and I don't think it's anything that is untoward.
Mr. Chairman, that would be strange. Then it would mean that the Ministry of Information does not have any budgetary allocation already for the programs that they run, but for this special allocation for government communicators. Is that your understanding?
Mr. Chairman, please, beyond the budgetary allocation, as I said, for instance, if there is a policy that is being introduced along the line, which can happen in course of the budget year, at the beginning or even after the presentation of the budget, there will be the need to look for funding to support those kind of programs in terms of live streaming, in terms of trying to do public campaigns and all that on those projects. And it all forms part of our mandates. When given the opportunity, I will have the pleasure of the President and with your prior approval to educate the Ghanaian populace on some of these projects.
So this allocation is for the use, the 4 million for 2021, you are saying is for the use of the Ministry of Information?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Now, my final one on maybe to reverse the question that was asked earlier. Is it the assumption of some that no government in this country has ever criticized or disagreed with journalists, and it is only this government that is criticizing and disagreeing with journalists. And for that reason, the journalists feel unsafe and they speak of it and write about it.
Mr. Chairman, please, when a journalist expresses that he feels unsafe, if there is any such allegation, it's a feeling of an individual. It's not something that we can hold as tangible and say we saw this happen or that happen. But it ought to be interrogated and it ought to be validated. Not to say that you will brush it aside or we don't pay attention to it. But that shouldn't include the fact that if a journalist expresses a view and someone is on a platform to express a contrary view, already the person is tagged as a party foot soldier or a crony of the government who has been sent to attack the journalist. We cannot have those kind of conversations in any civil discourse or any developed democracy. It happens everywhere that people express their opinions and others also express contrary opinion. But I'm saying that that simpliciter is not enough to say that the government is setting out to attack journalists or anything of that sort. Thank you.
So finally, I mean, will you then say that perhaps it is the manner and the way that the journalists are responded to today that is contributing to the feeling that there is some intimidation by government, and not necessarily because governments in the past didn't respond to them and didn't criticize them, but the manner in which this government does it is what creates that culture of fear and possible silence?
Mr. Chairman, as I stated earlier, I don't think there is a culture of fear or silence in the first place. And I believe that government communication or responses are supposed to be swift, they are supposed to be factual, they are supposed to reflect what the government's position is and believe to be the truth. And that is what, from my perspective, or what I've observed to be the case.
Very well. Yes, Honorable.
Fatimatu Abubakari. Nintanga Ola.
La Feve.
I'm greeting her in Kusal because she's put in her CV that she speaks Kusal. And she's from my neighborhood, originally Garu. So, congratulations on your nomination. I'm looking at your CV. You started your pupillage at Marfo & Associates 2021. What date in 2021 or which month in 2021 did you start?
Mr. Chairman, on 1st February 2021, please.
1st January?
February.
February?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, okay. And in 2021, you were Deputy Communication Director at the Office of the President, 2017 to 2021. I'm assuming 7th of or 6th of January 2021 or?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. And then you were at that time also the board member of the Ghana Trade Fair Company Limited, Deputy Communication Director, and then board member of the Ghana Trade Fair Company Limited. You held both posts at the same time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You declared your assets, paid your taxes?
Mr. Chairman, please, my taxes are deducted at source, please.
The taxes are deducted at source. Okay. Even where your taxes are deducted at source, you try to get a tax certificate, tax clearance certificate.
I have that, Mr. Chairman.
You've obtained your tax clearance certificate. Okay. So, Information Ministry, from your responses to the questions, I have the impression that you have a handle on the issues at the Information Ministry. Can you brief us on what investments are being made in the Information Services Department to enhance their reach and capacity? I recall that there was a strategy the minister mentioned some time ago to enhance the capabilities of the ISD officers posted to various ministries and agencies so that they move from glorified protocol officers to actual spokespersons of the ministries. How far with that program?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Please, I'll only get to the ministry at the pleasure of the President and with your prior approval. So I'm not there yet. But the minister was kind enough to brief me on a few things to acquaint me with the work at the ministry until then. And in relation to ISD, I know the ministry is embarking on a transformational agenda, which includes building the human resource at the ISD and also helping with logistics such as the ISD vans and the cinemas and also other infrastructural changes that will help them deliver effectively.
So whilst you were doing pupillage, you were the spokesperson of the legal team of the president. Is that a pupil, yeah, a spokesperson?
Yes, Mr.
Of the
Chairman.
legal team? What were you speaking to?
Mr. Chairman, I was fortunate enough to be one of the spokespersons, and especially sometimes what you get in the classroom is not just enough until you are sent to the court to get first-hand information and also be able to assess that and communicate that to the people. And I was privileged for that opportunity.
A spokesperson, MPP 2020 presidential election campaign, were you a member of the communication team, or you were the spokesperson, the main spokesperson of the campaign team?
Mr. Chairman, please, I was appointed as one of the spokespersons.
Yeah, so you need to clarify that in your CVs, because I was a spokesperson to the presidential candidate some time ago, so I knew that it's one thing to be spokesperson to the campaign team and then another thing to be the presidential candidate spokesperson. So you need to clarify that. What will you bring to your work at the ministry to enhance development communication? For instance, we want to plant trees all over the country. How can we communicate to achieve a green country?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm fortunate enough, given the opportunity, to work with a minister who is quite experienced professionally and also as a journalist and also at the office of the Minister for Information. So I believe whatever direction that he will take us, I'll make sure I put myself to work. Thank you.
Are you familiar with the field of knowledge generally referred to as development communication?
Quite a bit, because my understanding is that it has to do with the kind of communication that focuses on development areas, be it education, healthcare, infrastructure, etc. And for that matter, to amplify those areas, if there are needs for the attention of policymakers to come on those projects, and also if there are delivered and we need people to access some of those facilities, it is done accordingly, Mr. Chairman.
Do you share the view that many share about our media landscape, that a lot of the very valuable airtime tends to be focused on politics and very little on development, and so we must find a way of steering media communication to focus more on development. That's why I'm interested in your own appreciation of development communication.
Mr. Chairman, please, media, as we have to do, is predominantly private owned. And we know that some of these investments, you have to do the kind of programs that will give you the kind of traffic to also keep the stations alive. So sometimes the consideration goes beyond policy or development consideration, but other things that will help the media house to sustain themselves. What we can do as Ghanaians is to always advocate and plead for them to make consideration for some of these projects so that they will get the necessary attention and support they need. And also as a government to advocate for resources to be allocated when need arises for the state-owned media who predominantly do a lot of public service broadcasting to have the needed resources to go out there to do the advocacy for us. Thank you.
Yeah, but you know that one of the terms or conditions for the private media houses in terms of their licensing arrangement is that they commit a certain time to public service broadcasting. Is it possible that we focus on making sure that they keep to this commitment?
Mr. Chairman, please, given the opportunity, we shall monitor and engage accordingly.
Lastly, the public is very concerned about the broadcast culture of many of the private media houses. The kind of things they broadcast. You recall recently some children in the Kaswa area subjected their colleague to ritual murder, and people felt that they were largely influenced by some of the things that they see on television and hear on radio, and so a lot of the fault was being, the blame was being placed at the doorsteps of our media. Do you think that somehow, in the context of freedom of expression, that we must pay some more attention in terms of regulating what they broadcast?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Although the Constitution recognizes free media or free press, Article 164 of the Constitution also sets some limitations to ensure that the content that are coming out are in accordance with the necessary laid down laws and not against national security, public immorality, and also public policy. So I believe with those kind of considerations, it's necessary for the enforcement of some of these things are done. But most importantly, some of these issues we've raised are addressed in the proposed broadcasting bill to see to it that the National Communications Authority that grants authorization, which primarily considers management of spectrum, would have a collaboration with the National Media Commission, which is tasked by the Constitution and also the National Media Commissions Act 1993, to see to the highest standards of content in our media landscape. And also as a public, for us to put in a word when the need arises, to keep the media owners and editors on their toes when it comes to the kind of content they churn out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I promise you that that was my last question, and I will keep to my promise. I wish you well, except to ask when was the last time you were in Garu?
Mr. Chairman, earlier in the year.
Earlier in the year is January,
Somewhere
February,
January.
March.
I was there in November, I was there in December and January.
Were you there to campaign against us?
You're there for everything, including
Mr. Chairman,
campaign.
for everything.
Very well. You've done very well in the way you've answered questions, but something worries me, and I hope that you and your minister will work on it. I don't know how we can change the kind of language we use in public discussions or matters. Particularly our political discussions is becoming, rather than exchanges of ideas, too much indecent language in the public discussion. I don't know how we can work to turn that around. But listening to you and your presentations, I have no reason, your minister, I have no reason to have a complaint about, even when you disagree with your opponents, how you present it. I don't know how, in a view, we can turn around and give voice to only those who speak with decency. Is it possible to block out indecent language in our political communication? Is it possible in your view?
Mr. Chairman, some of these issues are some of the things being addressed in the new broadcasting bill, and we will always appeal to the NMC to engage because of their core mandate under Article 167 to address some of the complaints that come in the media, and also to plead with people who have the platform to make sure they don't give it to people who come up with such kind of communication. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Will the broadcast bill address social media? Because indeed, that is where some of the worst choice of words happen. Some of the most indecent language used in communication are on social media. The worst part of it, though, is that sometimes the mainstream media pick those and amplify them. Is it possible to deal with that?
Mr. Chairman, please, it's one of the issues being addressed in the broadcasting bill.
Very well. I don't know whether I want to discuss this issue of culture of silence, because I get emotional when certain individuals are mentioned. Individuals who have, I shouldn't mention them. Okay. They are costing their employers money every day. If anybody would take time and investigate in the courts the number of cases against certain houses and who are the cause, and often the media houses, the owners don't have answers because it's coming from individuals, including actions that have taken against some of them who are loudly talking that they are being dismissed because they don't have the decency to investigate even rumors. They just put them out as news and attacking other people's integrity, you know. But we'll leave it there for now. I wish you well. I know you're capable. Express yourself well and decently. I encourage you to keep the standard high and ignore those who are low. If I had it my own way, I will not respond to any indecent language, wherever it's coming from. But unfortunately, when you're in government communication, sometimes you have no choice because they use those indecent language to misinform, and you have to respond to them. But I wish you well, and you're discharged for now. You hear from us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.